All right, so we have some incredible breaking news. The conference or the press conference that had happened with President Trump last night, or rather in the morning as of USA time, it's almost been about 24 hours now, but he has talked a lot in some detail about the coming plan of what's going to happen. So let's talk about some of those things, the implications, and just how to respond as a believer and how to counter some of the narratives and other things as other people are trying to discern what's going on. And they're going to give you certain perspectives that they think is correct. But really, you have to discern, you have to be aware in the spirit of what's happening in this time right now as we're living through this. So first and foremost, let's take a look at a clip of what he said specifically that is literally getting a lot of people up in arms. I think it's important to just hear it from the source and see some of the stuff as people are picking apart a lot of these things.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country.
So if you haven't seen my video from yesterday, basically I'm brushing over the fact that Maduro and his wife have been captured. They are now in the States. They had been taken aboard the USS Iwo Jima, and now just a lot of footage is coming out about him being captured and him doing a perp walk, and people are looking through footage like this and just saying, like, you know, him saying, I think, Happy New Year, or this is a good night, and asking people or his wife about what to say, and just various things like that. And what a lot of people are wondering right now is that why is it that there was not a lot of resistance, and why is it that they were not heavily, taking casualties, meaning the U.S. forces? They had one helicopter that took a little bit of a hit, but they made it back, and nobody else. I think a few soldiers might have been shot, and they were basically able to make it out. And I don't know the extent of the damage, but basically nobody else died. And people are asking questions like, hey, Venezuela had like 5,000 of these like Russian, like super advanced Ingla-S, like a defense mechanism for helicopters. And a lot of the footage coming out with hundreds of helicopters, I don't know. I don't know exactly the numbers, but basically a lot of helicopters, a lot of fighter jets, and a lot of self-defense mechanisms that could have basically helped deter all of the attacks. But none of that happened. And so that allows a lot of people to speculate, is there some kind of conspiracy? Is there something else that happened behind closed doors? Because Sky News here was reporting that as of Saturday morning, sources inside the opposition told Sky News they believe Maduro's capture was a negotiated exit, meaning that because he had such low approval ratings, I think like 10-20% based on some polls, that there were people inside of his administration or organization that said, hey, listen, we will allow us to not do anything for you to capture Maduro. And even Maduro possibly was in on all of that because, yes, there were, a video of him antagonizing Trump and the United States to say, hey, come capture me, haha. But because he knew like he couldn't stand a chance with his military and the might of the U.S. forces, that he was part of it to say that I will negotiate my own exit, or that the opposition party or people inside of his organization said, you know what, come, we'll have our guards down, take them, make this a spectacle, a show, however you will, that you can portray this to the world, that you did this. And again, I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that that was part of why it could have been a negotiated exit and a possible conspiracy theory. And because of that, of course, there are a lot of people saying, look, Trump from his own mouth is saying that he's going to allow very large corporations to exploit its oil, and he's going to run the country, as I had shown in that original clip, and people are calling it blatant colonialism. And others, including the BBC, are looking at this and saying Trump's remarks mark a reversal of what he vowed not to do in his second term in power, a pledge to be a president who would stop wars, not start them, writes some chief person. And so I want to take a quick moment to say, listen, all of the people that are looking at this and saying Trump is bad and look at what it's doing, blah, blah, blah. And you can look at this at face value and say it's bad and it's colonialism. It's a, egregious abuse of power and an extension of dictatorship and all that stuff. But you got to remember, Maduro was not the president of Venezuela. Many countries across the world, sovereign nations, and many independent sources have said that this is the case. This is Secretary Marco Rubio saying this back in July of 2025, that Maduro is not the president of Venezuela and his regime is not the legitimate government because of the election fraud and all that where he took over in 2024. Maduro is the head, technically, of the Cartel de los Soles, a narco-terror organization which has taken possession of a country, and he's under indictment for pushing drugs into the United States. You got to look at what he is doing. He's doing things that is supporting drug trafficking, narco-terrorism. He's doing, going against democracy. He's taking over the country, and he's doing a lot of things that, as many heads of state, many people across the world are saying that this is factual and this is what's happening. Now, of course, you can look at that and say there is other stuff going on behind the scenes, meaning that he was planted there and deep state and being, given the money and all that. And so that's another story in and of itself. But the real thing that's happening here is that he was doing illegal things, or rather his team or whoever it is that is killing people with all of the drug trade and all of the other human, trafficking stuff and all the crazy stuff. So he was out there on indictment to be brought to justice. And what BBC and many others are looking at this in saying that this is bad, and again, this is part of the big narrative across the world that you have to discern, is that he's not going in there to take over and to say, you know what, we want to start wars and all of that stuff, but he's saying, as he's always been, that it's peace through strength. And so when you do actions, and of course some of it is offensive, meaning that you have to go on offense to allow defense, to allow peace, this is part of what he is doing. And it could look bad in the sense of the oil and all that, but many others, if you don't know, Venezuela is like one of the, if not like the number one or two largest oil reserve countries in the nation currently, where it is underdeveloped. And the U.S., and again, people can believe this or not, but I believe that the U.S. and the corporations, yes, there are going to be some greedy people, but they want to go in, they're going to help industrialize or develop the nation for oil production like Saudi Arabia, and hopefully bring that money back to the people and the people of Venezuela and grow and flourish that nation for this next season. And so be very careful when BBC and these guys say these things where they are spinning their narrative to say, look, he vowed not to do this in his second term and to stop wars, to not start them. Technically, this is not a war that he's starting with Venezuela. And this is from Marco Rubio, and I believe I'm just quoting here from possibly a phone call or something with BBC, but he's saying, speaking with several U.S. media outlets, and being on NBC, where he said, was asked if U.S. is at war with Venezuela, and he says that that's not a war. I mean, we are at war against drug trafficking organizations. That's not a war against Venezuela. He says the seizing of boats bringing drugs towards the United States will continue. And so this is why Marco Rubio, Trump, and many others are doing things that seems like war. It seems like he's starting wars, and as the BBC is saying here from this, comment, that this is, a stark reversal and all that stuff. But really, you got to look at context. And there's a very viral video going around where a Venezuelan man was asked his perspective, and he said, and again, this is translated to those who say that the U.S. is only interested in our oil. I ask you, what do you think the Russians and the Chinese wanted here? The recipe for arepa? And again, that's sarcasm, showing that the people of Venezuela are understanding perspective. They're understanding that they know their country. They know what's at stake. They know the perspective and the narratives, and they're trying to counter that as well to make sure that the world is educated. And so again, let's see what else is coming out of this. But the bottom line here is that we are seeing a great awakening of people that are, whether they're left and liberal, and these guys trying to defend certain things or not, or attacking Trump and others of certain things with their own preconceived notions and biases, trying to project that onto people. But really, if you are a Venezuelan, if you are somebody that's awakened conservatively in the sense of biblical perspective, they understand oppression. They understand what has gone on in Venezuela as well as in other parts of Latin America and South America, and what needs to be done to combat some of the things, especially at the big picture level, the spiritual warfare and the product, the produce, the fruit of what's coming out of some of these countries to try to make money, which is, in this case, with the narco stuff and the drug stuff. But now, hopefully, turning to a better, more resourceful way to make money and to be prosperous, which is through oil and the exports of this stuff and the whole infrastructure behind all that. So let's see what comes out of it, and be encouraged, because a lot of people in Venezuela, Caracas especially, are erupting in freedom chants after his capture, bringing down a lot of, I think I saw some video of people taking down flags, or rather the pictures of Maduro and others, because again, let's look at numbers. Economic collapse with 75% GDP drop, hyperinflation over 1 million percent, 94% poverty, 8 million refugees fleeing repression and rigged votes. And all of this, the legacy media continues to ignore this and not show the joy and sort of the celebration, but really looking at Trump and pointing at him and saying all kinds of stuff, as well as those that support it, and not covering the fact that there are cartels, there are puppets, there are deep state stuff, and many others in all of this. And so be encouraged, guys. A lot more is coming, and God is working through all of this. So love you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Talk to you guys very soon.